Hi everybody, Dan Stolbarger, KFIR Middle East update for the week of January 17th. Lots going on. Remember, make sure you go to our website, holygroundexplorations.com, in order to access the PowerPoint that accompanies this YouTube presentation. Also, the link should be on the YouTube page as well, because as you know by now, there's more material in the PDF than I have time for in the YouTube. So let's jump right in to what's going on in the Middle East this week. Talk a little bit about elections, not just Israeli elections, but so-called Palestinian elections. They remain a bit elusive these days as Abbas is seeking pretexts to postpone them. Keep in mind that Abbas just began his 16th year of his 4-year term. I'm not exactly sure that election is going to be forthcoming. The IDF, Military Intelligence Director, issued its annual assessment for 2020 on Tuesday, warning that Iran might have enough enriched uranium for a nuclear bomb by this spring. We need to pause because we're reading more and more about Iran ignoring any kind of sanctions whatsoever. They're full steam ahead with their nuclear program. And I'll remind you that for Israel, this is a red line. Israel will not allow Iran the capabilities of having a nuclear weapon. If that means a preemptive strike, you better fasten your seatbelt. So the more I read about this, the more I believe that that is imminent. The Palestinians opened fire on an IDF vehicle in Jenin just yesterday, according to Palestinian reports picked up by the Jerusalem Post. And it seems as if Fatah, keep in mind Fatah is the major political party of the Palestinian Authority, they're kind of ratcheting up the war drums and the saber rattling as well, promising now to continue terror. We expect this from Hamas, but not from Fatah, because they're the so-called moderates, the so-called peace partners. Their quotes, "We will cause volcanoes to erupt under your feet." So those are our news bites. Let's go into a little bit more detail. One concern that I have that's kind of behind the scenes is the whole issue of Jordan. Jordan's King Abdullah has said that his country's ties with Israel are on pause during an exclusive interview. The king has claimed that the cooling in relationship is due to the political climate in Israel today, the fact that they're not able to form a government after 2 elections. His quote is, "We hope that the Israeli people will decide on a government sooner rather than later, and then we can all see how to move forward." But as he continued, we read, King Abdullah was asked what he meant by saying there will be severe consequences if Bibi Netanyahu follows up with his intentions to annex Judea and Samaria. Severe consequences. We know the troubles that Israel has with Hezbollah in the north. We know the issues of Syria and Iran in the Golan Heights. We know the problems with Hamas in Gaza, and now another front, the Jordanians. Good thing that God is in control and holds Israel in the palm of his hands, because it apparently is becoming more and more clear that they're being surrounded by their enemies. Well, Trump speaks out, again being brought before the Congress, this whole assassination of Soleimani. He's now contending that there's information that would link this Iranian militant that he had planned major attacks on 4 U.S. embassies. That's why, according to Trump, it was imminent to end this threat. Again, he made the statement that these attacks were imminent. So once again, he's going to get hammered in the Congress, no doubt about that, and don't have time to go into the impeachment and how that impacts the 2020 elections and all that sort of thing. I'll leave that for another time. Israeli intel, we probably could have guessed this, but again, in the crosshairs of Iran, it's come out that the CIA knew exactly when the plane Soleimani was traveling in was landing, where it would actually be. All these details were given to the Americans on the night of the airstrike by Israeli intelligence. The only world leader who likely knew what was going to happen before the strike was, of course, Bibi Netanyahu. So again, those threats from Iran, death to America, always followed by death to Israel. I realize this is no new news because rockets were fired from Gaza into Israel, and Israel, as they always do, never lets those rockets go unpunished, I guess you would say. So they retaliated. And so that's taken place this week. We don't know if this is by Hamas or some splinter group or whatever, but again, I realize it's no new news. And also, Syrian sources are accusing Israel of carrying out an airstrike in Syria, once again, at the T4 base that's used by the Iranians as well as the Shiites. The airstrike targeted a weapons storehouse, and again, as normal, there's no acceptance. It's just quiet from the Israeli side of things, but we'll get into a little bit more detail in this next presentation or this next issue. But apparently these strikes were carried out by 2 Israeli Air Force F-35 stealth jet bombers. You can see the photos of what transpired there. Here's the issue, and this is what we need to kind of keep our eyes open, because Hezbollah has hundreds, listen carefully, hundreds of thousands of rockets available to them. Their problem is that they don't have the precision. These rockets don't have the precision necessary to articulate a exact strike, and so it's sort of like, let's just sort of guess and aim that direction. And that's a lot of what we see in the Gaza with all the rockets that are launched. They don't have the ability to have a precise targeting factor. Well, Hezbollah is now pursuing precision missiles. And as they begin, let me just read this to you. The Iranian-backed terrorist organization remains deterred by Israel's military might, but pursuing precision missile factories would be taking an enormous risk of escalation. The coming months will reveal whether Hassan Nasrallah realizes the extent of the danger and decides to step back from the brink. So just like there's a red line in terms of the nuclear program in Iran, this too is a red line. All of those strikes in Syria, most of them, a lot of them, are really targeting transports from Syria into Lebanon to Hezbollah. Many of them with this precision technology. And so if Hezbollah decides to open factories in Lebanon, Israel will not allow this to take place. So there will be further escalation with that. Well, I can see I'm about out of time. Jeopardy, take a look at this. There was an issue with Jeopardy, that popular American game show. The question or the answer they give, and what you've got to give the question, is built into 300s AD, the Church of the Nativity. And the person that buzzed in first says, "What is Palestine?" And Alex said, wrong. And the next person said, "What is Israel?" And that was correct. So you can read about this. That's caused quite the stir. Rain, and more rain in Israel. And then let me just end with a quote from Billy Graham, really directed to us as believers in this day. We are the Bibles the world is reading. We are the creeds the world is needing. We are the sermons that the world is heeding. We need to walk out our faith. One thing that we need to be is like the sons of Issachar, to understand the times and to know what we should be doing. But the one thing that we know that we can do is to pray. So let me encourage you to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem. Shalom.